Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 438th episode of my series, where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So it wasn't intentional to have two Wu-Tang Clan related endeavors in a row, but even if it isn't necessarily in that top tier of solo Wu-Tang debuts from the 90s, I still wanted to discuss Inspectah quality 1999 breakout full-length, Uncontrolled Substances. I think potentially part of the issue here, which was something a good number of the members had to deal with, was the fact that we had already received the first batch of solo Wu-Tang Clan projects years earlier, and by the time they got through Method Man's Tikal, Raekwon's Only Built for Cuban Links, Ghostface Killer's Iron Man, GZA's Liquid Swords, and Old Dirty Bastards Return to the 36 Chambers, I think some of the remaining MCs were left with the difficult task of trying to separate themselves and carve out their own sound. It also didn't really help that that same year in '99, Wu-Tang Clan would drop their highly awaited and anticipated sophomore full-length as a collective, Wu-Tang Forever, and even though Inspectah Deck was a clear standout on that double LP, just like he was on the first album, I still feel like that massive amount of group material sort of quenched the average fan's thirst at the time, and they probably didn't feel like they needed to spin one of the solo projects that came out that same year. And I think the same could be said about a project like GZA's Beneath the Surface. The only sort of exception to this rule was ODB, who released his second and final studio LP in 1999 as well, but despite the growth and cult status over the years and my own personal love for it, that project still didn't really make a splash the way his initial debut did. And I think the only reason Ghostface Killah was able to break this chain and sort of reinstill faith that they could still crank out quality solo material was because 2000's Supreme Clientele didn't follow the same RZA-baked formula most of the 90s work did, yet it also wasn't quite as experimental and out there as what ODB was doing, landing in this cozy middle ground where he was still improving as an artist and rapper, but kept the core of what every Wu-Tang fan loves. Even if the Rebel INS didn't find immediate success in that department, even with subsequent releases like 2003's The Movement or 2008's The Raw, he really turned the tables once the 2010s rolled around, because his work alongside 7L and Esoteric as one-third of Czarface has completely revitalized the legend's career, to the point he's really become one of the main faces from the Wu to keep the name alive and thriving throughout the 2010s and going into the 2020s. And if you are a fan of Wu-Tang but aren't familiar with Czarface, I would definitely recommend checking out their 2015 LP, Every Hero Needs a Villain. Getting back to Uncontrolled Substances, I feel like the lack of individuality when it comes to the overall sound and aesthetic is just about my only real criticism of this thing, though the major setback due to RZA's infamous Basement Flood has to be considered, since this is one of those albums where they lost the entire first draft. But even still, Inspectah Deck had already earned his role as arguably the best starting man in hip hop, especially after his game-changing opening verse on Triumph that same year. So it was definitely refreshing to hear the Rebel actually give as much time on each track as he wants, opposed to working with the Wu, where so many big egos and names are at play, that while it's good for competition, I have to imagine it's almost impossible trying to secure your spot on any given track. One moment that I feel really emphasizes this dude's lyrical ability is the first song that comes in after the intro, so it's basically the track where we first actually hear Inspectah Deck rapping, and I think his knack for kicking posse cuts off with a bang kind of played into how he sequenced this album, because he definitely made sure to hit the ground running with the very first verse he delivered. And I want to use this opportunity to share at least a portion of it with you guys. The lyrical savant kicks this track off with rebellious I felonious city slicker real spitter hit your district with the impact of a twister. Now clear the zone, rhyme down the phone lines and toss motorhomes. My poems were found next to dinosaur bones performed by the elders before the king's throne. This style has no origin or birth date, and scientists' research cannot calculate. The great minds skating through space and time, vibrating through the bass lines that stun mankind. Reclined in the leather seats, the cassette blasts, vocals that smash out the bulletproof glass. Ripping through your 15s like Wolverine, sick with the lyric, there be no vaccine. You attach with the tractor beam. Rap fiend and all heads who feel it lick off a magazine. While some would have used this opportunity to rap completely on every track and keep the spotlight entirely to themselves, instead Inspectah graciously decided to share it with a number of Wu-Tang affiliates, which included the likes of Kinetic Nine, Killa Sin, Street Life, Shoddy, Vinia Mojica, U-God, Law the Dark Man, and Masta Killa. As for the producers who made this thing happen, it's pretty much the usual suspects in terms of Wu-Tang projects from this era, with names like Fourth Disciple, The Blacksmiths, Mathematics, Pete Rock, RZA, True Master, VIC, and Inspectah Deck himself. When it comes to the tracks I chose to recommend for honorable mentions, I wanted to shout out songs like Movas and Shakers, The Grand Prix, Forget Me Not, Word on the Street, Lovin' You, Rec Room, Friction, Hypodermics, and Show and Prove. Then for my overall top 3 favorite moments, I think I'd have to go with the title track, Elevation, and Ninth Chamber. Thank you for watching my 438th video. Next time we are staying in New York to revisit a classic duo that hasn't been on the page in a minute now. So keep an eye out for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what tracks you enjoy the most from this somewhat underrated solo debut. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.